we got in earlier today. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Gray addressed the media about the U.S. China trade deal. Here's an excerpt of that interaction. Let's listen in.
We have reached an agreement on a 90-day pause and substantially moved down the tariff levels. Both sides on the reciprocal tariffs will move their tariffs down 115%.
Well, there is a very, very positive tone, tenor, what we heard from Scott Bessent and Mr. Greer there as well. Shaun Rein, founder and managing director, China Market Research Group, is with us. Rohit Srivastava, founder and strategist at IndiaCharts.com, is also with us. Gentlemen, thanks both of you for joining us. Shaun, your first take. This sounds, that 30% is way better than what anyone thought. At the upper bound, people were thinking, well, they probably drop tariffs to about 55, 60% and then start working from there. But this is 30%. And also, as I said, no decoupling, want to work together, how China was very, very open, willing to work, etc. This is a way better outcome. Would you agree?
This was a huge win for China. Not only did China not blink, they didn't fold, they didn't bend, but Trump did. And he didn't just blink, he actually kowtowed and fully prostrated to the Chinese for 90 days. And so China is really happy right now. There's a sense of exuberance in the country because China proved to the world that it's the new economic superpower, that the United States had to bow down because yesterday you had 0 ships coming from China into the Los Angeles ports. You saw small, medium enterprises in the United States had started laying off workers. You started to see even Republicans were complaining about empty shelves and high inflation and prices that were going to hit the shelves of Walmart and the websites like Amazon in the coming weeks. So Trump backed down. And you know what? China didn't give up any concessions. 0, completely, none. So this was very good for China. I think this is good for the world markets because it's showing Europe, it's showing Vietnam, it's showing Cambodia that they don't need to bow down to the United States and Trump right now because he's a paper tiger. He's not going to throw a lot of tariffs because he knows at the end of the day, there's too much political pressure in the United States. Now, I'm American. As an American, this was a huge loss of prestige, a huge loss of face for American might. This was a buffoonery. This is something that will go down in the annals of business history as one of the biggest mistakes ever by an American president for launching Liberation Day tariffs in the first place. But again, I'm smiling because this is good for the world economy, good for equity markets, and especially good for China, which is where I'm based right now.
But
markets
Shaun,
are open for business here.
But Shaun, compliments on being so direct and clear. That's always very refreshing on television, right? You're calling it as you see it. But it's a 90-day window, like the U.S. opened up for the rest of the world as well. Do you believe even at the end of the 90 days, the tariff is going to remain at 30%?
Look, I tweeted yesterday that as a face-saving measure, Trump should reduce the tariffs between 20 and 40%, because this will show his base that he didn't completely back down. And by having 90 days, he still has some leverage over China. But again, as I said, it's very clear that China is going to be able to withstand the pressure and push back very hard. 30% is probably where Trump is going to keep it. This is going to be a tax on the United States consumer. This is going to hit profit margins of American companies. But at the end of the day, it's okay for China. Chinese companies are the big winner out of this because no company, aside from maybe Apple, that's going to relocate some manufacturing of iPhones to India. Most companies are not going to leave China because of this. They don't know if they go to Vietnam, if there's going to be more tariffs. So the big winner is China because most companies will just stay in mainland China on the supply chain and sourcing and manufacturing. Now, as for China, for whether or not there's a 30% reduction, it doesn't really matter for China. Why? Because China has been de-risking from the United States for the last 7 or 8 years. In 2017, 18% of Chinese exports went to America. That number is down to only 14%. China actually exports 16% to ASEAN. You also see that this week, Xi Jinping is meeting with Lula Silva, the president of Brazil. He's also hosting the foreign ministers of Latin America and the Caribbean, CARICOM. So right now, Chinese companies are saying, you know what? We don't need the United States. China has shown that to the world. They're now able to sell to the global south, or I prefer to say the global majority. The one sticking point for China, the one weakness economically, is bad relations with China. Between China and India, which is a real shame. I hope that China and India has better economic relations in the next couple years, and that Modi realizes Trump is a paper tiger and can't be trusted. So Modi should move India's economy getting closer to China in the coming 3 to 5 years. That's what I would love to see for both countries.
Shaun, since you briefly mentioned India as well, we were fancying our chances that we could be first up with regard to the tariffs and maybe strike a favorable deal. It seems China jumped the gun. In fact, they jumped the line. What do you fancy in terms of, India's chances in stitching up a nice deal with the United States? First look at it, we fancied our chances, but it seems, as of now, it's not playing out to script.
Look, the United States is still going to want to favor India in some ways because they view China as a superpower and as a threat to American might. So what do the Americans historically do? In the 1980s with the Plaza Accords, they tried to destroy Japan. And basically Japan has had 40 years of stagnation because of it. They've tried to do it with the Chinese. The Chinese are not going to bow down because they're too strong manufacturing-wise. They also have a lot of innovation. They also have the largest retail market in the world. But the problem for India is that I believe you are going to grow over the next 10, 20 years. You should grow over the next 10, 20 years. It's right for India to have a larger say in world affairs. You're the largest, most populous country in the world. But here's the thing. I love America. I'm American. I might run for Senate one day. But the Indians cannot trust America. Because if India gets too powerful, and you will get that powerful in 10, 20 years, the Americans are going to try to destroy India and contain you the way they did it to Japan and the way they're trying to do it with the United States and China right now. India needs to be very cautious, shouldn't put all of their eggs in one basket and get too close to the United States. That's why I said Modi should balance between America and balance between China. But frankly, you all need to move closer to China because China's not going to try to contain you in the same way that America does.
Absolutely. Shaun, you're bringing up some very interesting points. Let me throw a slightly out of syllabus question at you as well, because these things end up being slightly related, especially behind the scenes. I mean, very interesting, political realignments you're speaking of. India technically has been, it's tried to sort of spread its risk. We've always had a relations with the Russians as well, so to speak. On China specifically, since you raised that point, I mean, what we've seen in the last 4-5 days here on the subcontinent, there's the trade talk, but there was very serious geopolitical, issues that flared up as well. And India, I can tell you, was watching every sentence coming out of China very, very carefully. So the Americans reacted, they did what they did, and the Chinese have reacted. My question, out of syllabus question, is this, that will what is happening in the geopolitical theater and the, might I say, slightly constructive statement that we had from China, could that also impact trade relations, ours with the U.S. and ours with China? I mean, you are there on ground. What are you picking up?
Look, I do not believe that China wanted Pakistan or terrorists in Pakistan, whoever did it, to kill those innocent people in India. That's a horrible thing. My heart goes out to them. I believe that China was saying, you know what, the last few months, they've been getting closer and closer with Modi and getting closer and closer with India. So the last thing that the Chinese wanted was to have a flare-up of tensions between Pakistan and India. That does not help China in any way economically. It does not help China geopolitically because China is looking for friends like Russia, like India, powerful nations, to have a balance of power against the United States. So I just don't see, I'm hopeful for better relations between China and India. I would hope that the Indians don't view China as supporting a proxy war against India via the Pakistanis. I just think that's a lot of sensationalism that you've seen in Indian Twitter. I just don't see that being the case. China benefits, India benefits from closer relations. And again, I love America, but be scared of getting too close to America. You either are a vassal of the United States or you're an enemy.
All right. Shaun, strong comments, strong statements. Thank you very much for joining us with that perspective. Appreciate it. That's Shaun Rein, founder and managing director, China Market Research Group. I think the